This piece here is one of my pieces I did a few years ago, and the main feature of this piece is it was done on a canvas that was stretched by the great artist Vincent Smith. And my mentor, Ed Clark, has a lot to do with the paintings and the action on this canvas. Ed Clark changed my direction in a positive way. When I was painting, I was using a certain kind of paint, and he came by my house every time I did something. He would always come over right away, jump on the train, come over. He would walk in and look at the painting, and he'd say, well, it doesn't look finished. He wouldn't tell me to put some red here, some blue there. He would always just say, it doesn't look finished. This painting was when I started to use certain kind of drops to create a particular color that could not be duplicated. Because the drops have to be a certain height, whatever mixture I had on the brush or whatever instrument I used, it has to be a certain height to get this figure here and that. When I paint, I kind of paint just the way I improvise in my jazz music. I kind of know where I'm going or what I kind of want to get to, but I'm not always certain that I'm going to get there. I was basically interested in the movement of the painting. As you notice in here, the paint just kind of moves itself and blends itself in a direction, and this comes across and comes through and underneath all of this. And I was always interested in the dimension. My assistant pointed out I love red. I have red probably in just about all my paintings, except for a few that I chose not to even use any red in them. Going back to the stretching of this canvas, it's on linen, and this was done by a very famous artist, a very talented artist, who's not with us anymore, named Vincent Smith. And the story behind this is Vincent had passed away, and they were emptying out his studio in Brooklyn. And Ed Clark said, let's go over to Vincent's studio and get all those paintings that they were just going to throw out on the street. And they were stretching already, ready to be painted on, but there was nothing on them. And Ed Clark took 18 paintings, and I took 18. And he was just nice enough to share that with me. He could have taken all the canvas, but he was a very generous person in that respect. And he always, told me that I was the only student that he ever taught anything or shared anything with. And he didn't do anything in the colleges. He did lectures here and there, but as far as teaching in a particular college, he didn't do that. This is a piece that was inspired by knowledge I got from Ed Clark. And if you notice in the right-hand corner, I had signed that piece to hang the opposite direction, and I put it up here, and then I changed my view of it. So now I guess I have to sign it down here. It can be hung in both directions, where the blue is at the top and the red is at the bottom. Hello everyone, my name is Dick Griffin. I'm an artist, musician, and I compose. So I had a question, actually, of when did it begin? January 28, 1940, on a cold, snowy day in Mississippi. And I was born at 7 a.m. and a midwife came on a horse to deliver me. Cold problems that day. And my musical career, my learning, to speak and interact with people started when I was about 1 year old or 2 years old for all that. But I spent a lot of time in the country we call it Fannin, Mississippi. And that was for my mother and my grandmother and brother. And and 4 sisters. My life at that time was very interesting because I had a pet. I had a dog. Well, this dog was a German Shepherd. That dog was riding like I was riding on a horse, and he was such a trained very well, good for a trained dog. He would, if mama wanted to give me a spanking, the dog catch me by my diaper. So my mother came and hit me. And in about 10 minutes after that, I'll be mad with him for a short period of time. And then the next thing you see, I'm out there riding again and having fun with my dog. And the question was, what do I remember from the beginning of my life? And that was one of the things. And when I'm about 2, walking, going to church, very first music I listened was music in the church. I remember doing the school plays, Easter Sunday, we stand there reciting Bible verses, and then later on we had plays. We used to have Christmas plays and Easter plays, and I sing in the choir very early. So they had the youth choir, and interesting thing happened in the church. I remember that they would have the youth teach the adults and invite them to Sunday school, or the Sunday school. So I went to see the movie, The Ten Commandments. I actually told the story about what I saw in the movie, and I told it so well. Moses did in the script. One of the deacons of the church told me, thought I was called to preach. And he used to call me, "Are you going to preach?" That was my nickname for the gentleman. Because I told him, he didn't know that I had read the Bible, but he wanted the story. And it was just an interesting life. At that early age, let's say from about 2, 3, 4, before I went to school, I was living in this neighborhood called Under the Hill. And that was a rough part of the town. It was at the very end of Jackson, Mississippi, where if you walk all the way down High Street, or Mississippi Street, you would walk into the river, Pearl River. And every year, the water would come up in the springtime and flood that area. So, and at that time, I enjoyed the water because as a kid, we could make money going to the store for the adults that wanted food, bread, or sodas, or what have you. And they would build these 2x4 planks. They would build something like a little raft that you could walk from your house out to the main set of planks, and then walk to the street until there was no more water. But it was so interesting that during that time, they had snakes in the water, and they called them water llamas. It was a lot of fun for a child at that time, but it wasn't too much fun for an adult. That was before I actually went to the first grade. I lived under the hill, and I would go to the country called, play with my friends out there, but all the guys who lived out there, they knew that I wasn't cut out for that kind of life. So we would pick blackberries and I was afraid of snakes. But the guys who lived out there, they knew that. So every time there was a big, beautiful bush of blackberries, snakes would hang out under those, and I would go over and woke up, and there was a big snake, and it scared me, and everything. So, and all the guys who lived in the country, they had a lot of fun with that, So even I wanted to help my uncle. My uncle was a very good hunter. He could hunt. It was like a sport for him. He could go in the woods and decide he wants to have a rabbit or a squirrel or whatever, and he wouldn't miss, and so he would go out. So when we would go to the country for breakfast, we would like our Uncle Mother, when we wanted, to eat that. I want to eat those rabbit, I want some rabbit. I want to toss some, whatever. And he would go out and would shoot 3 times, and he'd come back with 3 different, and chickens, different formulated, other chicken, and they had hogs so that we ate a lot of pork. And they canned a lot of food. All of this is saying, this is my beginning. And before I even got into playing music and painting and moving, this is the beginning, and this is what I remember. And this question was asked to me, what do you remember about first stages of your life? I remember even at first stages of my life, music was there and very important. I went to church. I loved going to church because I loved to hear church choir and the ladies. There was some good vocalists in the choir. They would sing so good to have the people in the audience shouting. So all of that was embedded in me very early. And even later on in my life, I started to attend the Holy Ghost or the Sanctified Church. And because my mother, I was raised in a house with just women, a lot of women, 6 women. My 3 sisters, my brother, my grandmother, my brother, and the church. I'll be the first one to get out of the house. When I went out of the house, I went to the Sanctified Church in my backyard, Jason Street. Go and spend about an hour in that service. And we shouted, played the tambourines and everything. And then my mother and sisters got dressed and ready to go to church. We went to the Baptist church. And there was some music there that really inspired the people. They shouted and they had another form of the spiritual Holy Ghost and music, but it was all based on this music and getting people moving. So that was ingrained in me from a very, very early. Talking about my first lessons. And I was living on video. I think it was high water and recreation. We didn't have any choices. So here we used to rock soap, shoot diet, shoot bubbles, actually make scooters. But in order to ride the scooters, we had to go up to the cap of the ground because all down here where I lived, there was only gravel. There was no pavement at all. It was just gravel road. And gravel, I can explain to you, there were large rocks around the sides of the asphalt, and they were put on the street on just regular dirt. And every road in that my neighborhood was gravel. But we got skates for Christmas. We would have to go up to the Capitol to the paved roads in order to skate. A very interesting thing, being that I was in the segregated South, we had about 2 blocks we had to pass through a white neighborhood. And the interesting thing with that is, if we went solo or went by ourselves, a lot of times we would be harassed by the kids or something. So we had a policy to never do that right now. Ourselves, we walked in too, so there wouldn't be a lot of harassment, chasing you home and all of that. So, and as I said, the skates, we got skates for Christmas, and we would skate up at the Capitol, and then after the skates would get to a certain condition, we would take them apart and build a scooter and put half of the skates on a 2x4 and the other half on another 2x4 and put a little box in front of it. And we made all of our toys, pop and all the food stuff. So, but getting to music, there was a guy named Mr. Jesse. And Mr. Jesse did 2 doors for me, one under the head. And Monday through Friday, he worked a regular job. And his job was to dig ditches and call them dig trenches. So he would come home with his clothes full of blood. He would go away and take a bath and clean up. And then while his wife would be preparing supper, which is generally for him, he would pick out his guitar and play for us. And I really look forward to all those times he played, because he was like a rapper. He would just tell us what happened on the job that day, and in a rhyming way, he made it up as, that I saw this, and today I would do this, and it was almost like the rappers do today. The one thing that stands out that caught my attention very strongly was one day a lady in a red dress, and she had some high heels, and she was walking down the street, getting ready to turn into the street that I lived on, which was Seville Street, 1329 Seville Street, for my address. And she was walking on the gravel road. She slipped and almost fell, and he put it in the song. And I said, oh my God, I wanted to be like this Jesse and being able to make music and rhyme and everything. So that was one of my first introduction to music. Art came much later. It came in high school when I got interested in art. But the music came first. And then as a result of going through this neighborhood, I had a friend named Herbert Lane. And Herbert was my big brother. He would, we would go to school together because he was 3 years old, actually 3.5 years old, 4 years old. And he looked out for me. And I want to roll this back up here to early part of my life, because I have the question, how did it begin and where did I get to where I am now, which I'm 86 years old. I have a lot of stories and a lot of things in life to share. But going back to early stages of my life, I'm running on the stepfather. My life about finding a rapper, my mother was stepfather, and when I was a year old. Unfortunately, he got killed in a fire when I was 7 years old. And I was in 2nd grade, going to school. And he was in the back seat, and they hit something, and it fell him over the seat, and hit his head on the dashboard and broke his neck, and he passed away. So the sad part about that, my mother was pregnant, youngest sister, and that was in July when that happened. My mother was in a maternity suit at the funeral showing her pregnancy, and my sister was born in September. So July, August, September, she was about 7 months at that time. But as I said, the talk of my friend Eric Blaney, I didn't have male things in the house. I was, like I said, still an accident. But we would walk through this white neighborhood in order to go to elementary school. I went to a school Slick Marks, and that was a school that went from 1 through 6, first to 6th grade. And a good friend of mine, who's not with us anymore, Freddie Wicks, we were in the first grade together. And our teacher was Miss Cassidy, and I had a crush on Miss Cassidy. I thought she was the most beautiful woman in the world. And as a young 6-year-old, having a crush on the teacher, that crush was staying, and she was so beautiful. She had beautiful, very beautiful eyes. And Freddie, that's when I met him. And I was 6 years old in the first grade. And an interesting parallel went along with my dear friend Freddie. We were in the first grade to the second, third, 4th, 5th, 6th, and the 7th grade. Now, 7th grade, we went to a high school, the near high school. Smith Robinson was the elementary school. But the near high school was from 7th to the 12th grade. It was junior high, we call it, and high school. The same building, the same. My dear friend, like I said, 30 years, same class as the grew up. First grade, same class, second grade, same class, and then when we got to the 7th grade, we were in the same home. By the time I got to the 7th grade, I was going to spray. When I say going to spray, I wasn't going to school. I was out into the rough world. Put me in the prison, got me killed if I stayed. I was his character. So, to make it simple as I can, I had on the shoot looking at it, and I had cut school shop for 10 days. My mother got me. So my mother came to school. I was out the house, and my father and mother. At that stage, I was 7 years old. My mother didn't want to she made but she wanted to get me a meeting on cousin. So, anyway, make the long story short, I was ready for this. And I cried. And funny stuff like that. Then, I had never seen my mother. She said, "Oh, man, you do this." And when I tell the story like that, go back to the same field with tears. So I was doomed to not do that again and to change. So I came into the classroom, being that Freddie Grace and we were in the same class. Freddie had a set of drumsticks, and he was playing, beating on the board. I guess it was very on his move, it was very on. And I was Freddie, are you in the band? He said, yes, I'm in the band. So I didn't ask another person. I did a call straight to Mr. Holly. It was my band director, Mr. Holly. I said, Mr. Holly, I want to be in the band. I want to play trumpet. And Mr. Holly would say, he addressed his students as son. Okay, son. Like all his his children. He said, son, I got another trumpetist, but if you want to play the trombone, you can take it home today. Yes, sit me down, show me what to do. And I did that. Gave me a mouth, he showed me how to close it and everything, and gave me that instrument. And I walked home so proud in my neighborhood because most people, I had a nickname in school. I was one of the few people that were really going to school. The other guys, they got jobs. One guy, very good, and was strong. They were working with Mr. Lawrence. They were training once a day. But as I was saying, that neighborhood I came under the hill was not a lot of choices. There were not a lot of people in the school. One guy named Mason bought a saxophone and taught himself with a book. Taught himself how to play. And I thought that was so great. Getting back to getting in the band. I got to the band that day. That was the February 20th. When I took on, it started me to not be, cutting school and hanging out with the guys and whatnot, that were all going to. I couldn't get to school too early. I would be at school when it opened up at 8 o'clock. I was there getting into the school to practice. And I was practicing trombone until the floor head. We had John's head. That was the day, and now this is the day I was so excited about music, what music did for me, and just turn around to the day I still love music, I still enjoy it so much, I really like it, so I get so much stronger. And so the first thing that was asked to me is, when did it start and how did I get to where I am? It's been 6 years. I can say I'm up to basically the day that I started to take trombone, but over in the back of it, I have to say this. My friend Herbert Delaney was taking piano when I was 11 years old, and Mr. Eddie Marino was his teacher. So one day, being that we had to walk together, one day he was taking piano lessons, and the very next day, I had found 25 cents. And I started knocking down lessons, and it was a portion of my life. And I have lots of music, art.